Hello, everybody. It is November the 5th, 2020. Time for Belovsky Science once again. A few things here on this page right here that I wanted to call to your attention. You need to do your warm up. Right there is the warm up. Channel proteins allow what two types of ions to enter the cell? All right. You need to watch the video, which you're watching now. Follow directions in the video. The cell organelle test is tomorrow, and that will be in all classes. The Chapter 2 test will be on Monday. You need to be studying your vocabulary. And the Chapter 2 Lesson 3 review sheet is due today. It is due today. By the time you're watching this or reading this, it's going to be too late. You're going to have 50 points knocked off of it, but it's still a whole lot better to get 50 points than it is to get a 0. So make sure you turn it in so that you can get your points. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the work. Today we started Chapter 4, section or Chapter 2, Section 4. And we're going to get into that work right here. Not very much, not going to be a very long video because Section 4 or Lesson 4 is actually very, very short. So basically what we started talking about today was we talked about a process that is very important, and you're going to study this for the rest of your days. If you go ahead and go through high school and go through college, your biology classes, you're going to be studying this. And what you're going to be studying is basically the what's called cellular respiration. So on your review sheet, you need to go down on this sheet right here. You need to go underneath 33 in this area right here, and you need to start taking notes down through here. You know how it's done. All right, so what is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration is a series of chemical reactions that convert energy in food molecules into a usable form of energy that we have studied, ATP. Hit pause, type that in. All right, cellular respiration. What is it? All right. Well, cellular respiration. Let's say, for example, in the mornings, you eat a Pop-Tart here. I got Pop-Tarts loaded across here. When you eat Pop-Tarts, all right, the Pop-Tart is full of sugar, okay? The breading has sugar, the icing has sugar, the filling in the middle has sugar. And what happens is it enters into your cells, and this is actually a better picture right here. The sugar enters into your cells and chemical reactions take place that makes those sugar molecules smaller. And it goes into your mitochondria and it makes energy. It makes ATP. Or it enters into your cytoplasm and it makes ATP there. Those sugar molecules do. All right. So cellular respiration basically takes sugar that you eat, and then it takes oxygen. And if you look at this picture right here, once again, right here, here is oxygen. It takes sugar and oxygen and it combines them together. And when it combines them together, it makes ATP, which is that energy that we have talked about, adenosine triphosphate. And that sugar is what gives you the energy to be able to do whatever it is that you need to do. Now, the next word here is, and I always have trouble saying this, glycolysis. Glycolysis. In your notebook for glycolysis, glycolysis is a process by which glucose, remember that is sugar, is broken down into smaller molecules. Hit pause. All right, so what is glycolysis? Glycolysis is basically when you take sugar and it goes into your body, it is broken down into its molecular form. because when you eat sugar the way it is now in food or straight out of the sugar bowl, it's too big. It can't go into your cells. Um, this right here is where we get sugar from, sugar cane. And I'm sure that you have seen that before. They squeeze sugar cane, and out of the sugar cane comes a liquid, and that liquid is processed, and it is made into sugar that we know of, what's in your sugar bowl at home. And when you eat that, it is too big to go into your cells. So it has to go through a process in which it is made smaller, made down into molecular form. And when it's made into that molecular form, then it can then be used by the cells. And right here you can see where it says glucose, because here it's been made into a smaller form to enter into the cells and into the mitosis, or into the mitochondria, to make energy. So glycolysis is a process by which sugar is broken down into its smaller components. All right. On this page, it talks about a process that is called fermentation. So here is fermentation. Fermentation is a reaction that eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells can use to obtain energy from food when oxygen levels are low. Hit pause and type that in. All right, so what is fermentation? All right, well, fermentation basically is a process that energy is created if your muscles run out of oxygen. Now, how can that happen? Well, believe it or not, it happens to all of us. If we look at this picture right here, this picture right here shows you muscle cells. Right here is muscle cells. And what it's showing you is lactic fermentation. And what happens is you get sugar, and the sugar is converted into energy without oxygen. In other words, you're doing some sort of strenuous exercise, you're working out, you're doing something, and it causes you to basically run out of oxygen. And when you run out of oxygen, your muscles just don't stop working. They continue to work, but they produce ATP. It's a lot harder for it to make ATP, and another substance is created on top of it, and that is called lactic acid. Now, you're probably saying, whoa, this is super confusing. Actually, it's not. It's actually very, very easy. What happens is say like when I rake the yard and I'm doing this motion constantly for hours upon hours, the muscles in my arms run out of oxygen. The oxygen level drops real low. Even though I'm still breathing, I'm working at a rate that I'm burning up the oxygen, which is used by the mitosis to burn energy, much faster than what I can replenish to the muscles. And so what happens is my muscles just don't stop working. They will keep on working for me, but they burn oxygen, and without oxygen, they burn the ATP, but without oxygen, they create what's called lactic acid. And you know how when you do something strenuous, such as go skating or work out in football, the next day you wake up and your muscles are sore? Well, that's because you've run out of oxygen in your muscles. So ATP was still burned, but since there was no oxygen, this thing called lactic acid was made as well in your muscles. And lactic acid makes your muscles sore. It's kind of like I've heard it referred to as lemon juice in your arms. And it makes you very sore. And you can work that out if you get up when you're sore. If you get up and start moving around, it works. It makes that acid start thinning out in your body. And if you'll drink water, it will flush that acid out. It'll make you go potty, but it will help you to flush that acid out of your body, and it will make you feel better. When you're sore, if you just lay in bed, that's the worst thing you could do. All right, so fermentation is basically when your muscles work, run out of oxygen. When they run out of oxygen, they will still make energy, but they will make energy and lactic acid, which will make you sore the next day. Now, fermentation also creates alcoholic things. Alcoholic beverages and foods are made through alcoholic fermentation. Not only just beer and wine and other things like that, there are foods that are made. Now, if you look here at this picture, you're going to see right here yeast. One of my favorite things to eat when I go to a restaurant are the big yeast rolls. I love those big fluffy yeast rolls with yeast in it. When yeast is put into dough and it's put into the oven, the yeast starts eating the sugar that is in the dough and it starts producing gas. And that gas makes the bread rise. Okay? And that's why yeast rolls are nice and fluffy, because they have gases all through them. There are certain things that bready things that do not have yeast in them. And I tell the kids in class today, Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme donuts. I'm an expert, so I know this stuff well. Krispy Kreme donuts are made with yeast. That's why they're light and fluffy, whereas a Dunkin' Donut is not made with yeast. If you've ever noticed Dunkin' Donuts, they have a thicker type of donut. It's almost like a cake, or it's just a thicker, denser, more material. And that's because there's no yeast in it. All right, so they're both good to me. I'm not going to complain about any of it. All right, but yeast that you see here in the book, when yeast is added to things, it helps to create a little bit of alcohol. And as that alcohol is made in these breads, as it's cooking in the oven, that alcohol burns out and it goes away and you never taste it. So, yeah, you're not going to get drunk off of yeast rolls or eating Krispy Kreme donuts. So, anyway, here's the example. It shows glucose, which is sugar, all right, during alcoholic fermentation, creates ATP and carbon dioxide and alcohol. And the carbon dioxide is what makes the bread or the donut nice and fluffy, and the alcohol cooks away. Or in alcoholic beverages, beers and things like that, the alcohol remains in, and that's where the alcohol content comes from. All right. So fermentation we've taken care of. Now the last word, and I keep looking at the clock because the bell is going to ring shortly. The last word here is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a series of chemical reactions that convert light energy, water, and carbon dioxide into food energy molecule called glucose, and it gives off oxygen. Hit pause and type that in. All right. So, photosynthesis is a very important process, especially for plants. It's how they make their food, and they make their food from three things: light energy, water, and carbon dioxide. When those three things are mixed together, it creates sugar, water, and carbon dioxide. The plant keeps the food, and it gets, or the plants keep the food, and they get rid of the water, and they get rid of the oxygen. I should say it gets rid of not carbon dioxide, it gets rid of oxygen, and that's the oxygen that we breathe. All right, so photosynthesis is super, super important to us animals. And I'm going to say that again because I kind of mixed that up a little bit. When a plant does photosynthesis, it takes light energy, water, and carbon dioxide. It mixes them together and it creates sugar, water, and oxygen. The sugar it keeps, that's food that it uses. The water and the oxygen is given off through the plant, comes out through the leaves usually. And of course, the water goes into the atmosphere, and us animals use the oxygen to breathe with. So it's very, very important. Um, some of the classes mentioned today that we were talking about the importance of photosynthesis. And some of the classes were talking about how they were taught in elementary school that the tropical rainforests is what produces the oxygen for the world. And if we lose the tropical rainforest, we don't have enough oxygen to breathe in. That is not correct. Um, the If you've been taught that, that's simply not true. Our tropical rainforests are important. We need to conserve them because they are homes to creatures and they do produce a lot of oxygen in those areas. Um, what's interesting is like the Amazon rainforest, the Amazon basin, those rainforests in through there, none of that oxygen comes up here to North America. That oxygen remains in that area right there. Um, the majority of our oxygen is created in our oceans. The microscopic life that is in the oceans, the bacteria and the protists and the plant life that is in our oceans, that is where the majority of our oxygen in our world comes from. So, um, anyway, just I thought I had some students mention that to me today, and I kind of told them, it's not exactly right. The majority of our oxygen comes from our oceans. That's why we need to make sure we keep our oceans nice and clean now, because that we need to keep those animals safe, and that is where our oxygen comes from. So, all right, so that is the end of the definitions. Now, what you need to do now is um, you need to take these definitions that you've written right here. You need to plug them in here. And tomorrow we are going to fill in this review sheet. All right. So tonight, what you need to do is you need to put the definitions into this review sheet that you're looking at right here. Tomorrow, you need to do two things. If you're a virtual student, you need to take the organelle test and you need to fill out the rest of this review sheet and turn it in tomorrow. Okay. All right. That's it for Thursday. I hope you have a great day. Email me if you got a question and we will yell at you tomorrow. Bye.